and welcome to the 2025 Poetry Africa Festival. This is an online conversation between wonderful poets who establish things and make things happen. And so we're just going to engage with them and hear about their journeys. And let me start introducing each one of them. Okay. Charmaine Kolwane Mkhwebi is a Free State-born Setswana-speaking poet, publisher, storyteller, literary mentor who has become a leading voice in South Africa's literary landscape. She has published 3 poetry collections and authored over 15 children's books, carving a space for African stories that speak to both young and adult audiences, passionate about education, cultural preservation. She has played an pioneering role in introducing poetry to schools, where she inspires learners to write, perform, and celebrate literature. This work has given rise to a new generation of poets and helped build thriving poetry communities across the Free State and beyond. As a publisher and bookseller, Charmaine provides platforms for new authors, while as a mentor, she guides emerging voices with care and vision. Her story blends Setswana oral traditions with contemporary themes, making her work a bridge between heritage and modern identity. Welcome, Charmaine. So Nick is a Ugandan poet and a playwright based in London and the founder of Obsidian Foundation. Dr. Makhoha has been the recipient of the Ivan Juritz Prize and the Poetry London Prize. His debut collection, Kingdom of Gravity, was shortlisted for the Felix Dennis Prize for Best Collection and was one of the Guardian's best books of the year. Has been published in several journals, including Poetry, the Cambridge Review, the New York Times, Poetry Review, Poetry London, Poetry Wales, and the Boston Review. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, and his new collection, the New Carthaginians, thank you, was published by Penguin. Thank you so much. Welcome, Nick.
Hi.
And Ntokozo Zulu, affectionately known as Starring in the Acts Scene, is a Durban-based poet, curator, MC, language practitioner, and podcaster who began his creative journey in 2007, a founding member of the DUT Poetry Society, Durban University of Technology Poetry Society, which is currently known as Usiba Lwaba Lobi. He served as its chairperson from 2014 to 2018. He is the mind behind the popular tagline, Izinkondlo, Ziyaphilisa, Poetry Heals. Widely embraced in the poetry community, he further expanded his vision by launching a poetry podcast under the same name in 2021, providing a platform for artists within the genre to get to narrate their journeys. Between 2014 and 2019, he curated and co-hosted a late-night show titled Sixikoza Ngosiba, demonstrating artistry through the pen on Ukhozi FM, the most listened to radio station in South Africa. Every Monday from 11 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning. I always get this wrong. Alongside Lungsani Mavundla and the late beggar BK Mchunu, he continues to provide guidance to many upcoming poets and assist in launching poetry sessions around province of KZN. Welcome, Ntokozo, siyakwamkela.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, Hector Kwana is the founder of World of Words, WOW, South Africa's leading poetry movement since 2017. He has curated powerful poetry and music experiences that spotlight diverse voices, create safe spaces for self-expression, and build authentic communities under his leadership. WOW has grown into a cultural platform that fuses poetry with music, fiction, and activism, offering fresh and intentional experiences that nurture healing, creativity, and human connection. In 2026, WOW will celebrate its 10-year anniversary, marking a decade of shaping culture and amplifying voices through poetry. Okay, welcome, guys. I look forward to this conversation. Hector, can you tell us where you're at? Let's just shout out our locations before I start.
All right. It's such a pleasure to meet you guys. My name is Hector, and I am joining from Johannesburg, South Africa, in a community of Lawrenceville, Victoria, to be specific. Yeah.
Okay, Charmaine, where you at?
Dumelang. Joining from Tabancho in the province of Free State, city of Bloemfontein, in a community of the Botswana-speaking people, led by a She king called Kgosi Rabuilele Moroka.
Oh, wow. Siyaleboga, ne? Nikki.
Yeah, I'm 1 hour behind you guys. I'm in the past. I live in South London in the UK. So that's where I am in my house, trying to stay warm. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, fabulous.
Getting ready for South Africa. So I got to keep my temperature up.
You're in the past, but in the present.
Yeah,
You're in
that's
dual
right.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yes, and you're about to come home
That's
in
right.
the warmth.
Yeah.
Okay. Dogozo, please tell us where you're at.
Yebo, sanibonana. Greetings to all of you. My name is Ntokozo Zulu. I'm in South Africa, the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm in the city of Durban, where we only have 2 seasons. It's only summer and summer.
Yeah, definitely. So it's more like Kampala, there's no, Kampala is near the equator. So I'm giving Nick, and it's quite humid, a context. And the Charmaine's one it gets cold. South Africa does get cold, guys. So I'm gonna start. What I love about each and every one of you is the fact that you've established something, right? And you founded something, an entity in poetry. And I wanna ask a question to each one of you. How did you start this entity? And why did you feel the need to start it, right? And we're just gonna engage about our journeys. So Hector, if you can please start with the question or the answer.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I started in 2017. Essentially, I was exploring the cultural space, and one of my friends, who's also the co-founder of World of Words, is Tutugani Mieza. So I was, going to every event with him, and I was that friend / manager for him. And I think one of the things I saw was that there's a lot of slam competitions and not necessarily places to just perform and indulge in open mics and stuff like that. So he and I kind of explored the industry together, and we saw a gap to say, there's no space just for people to enjoy poetry. In most spaces it's competition, which is great. But we would like to do something light, something vibrant, energetic, something beautiful that people have to dress up for. People have to, look good. We have photographers, we document it, and it's like a lifestyle of poetry in a way. So that's how we started. And I had just quit my retail job at that time, and I wanted to fully commit to the arts. So I was promoting to Tugani, and then ended up being a poetry organizer and founding the platform World of Words. Yeah.
Thank you very much for informing us about your journey. I mean, what you say so beautifully is this need to actually cultivate the culture, and there's just beautiful. One thing I learned about Durban, and Durban had like this poetry session called Suits in. Dogozo help me, something about suits and
Poet in a suit.
poets in a suit. So
Yes.
like it's like poets who dress up, and it gets like serious. I got intimidated because I'm one of those artists that, like, who looks a bit
Yeah.
hippie, and I want that hippie dirty look. And I just was like, oh yeah, young people really what's the word, reimagining what poetry and the spectrum of poetry is in relation to even fashion and dressing up. I know I step up also, I always suit, so I know there's that movement also. And well done for being brave and leaving something that is a stable to job to engage this unstable field for some of us, right? I don't know how it feels. We're gonna get into that conversation, right? Charmaine, can you start introducing not introducing yourself, but this speak about just how you started your entity and how has the journey been for you?
Yeah, I started Charmza Literary Club and hosting poetry shows and sessions for scholars and in our community because of a lack of poetry sessions, for poets to gather, perform, and just network, because we'd have one annual platform for poetry called Makufe that would happen once in a year, and throughout there won't be anything happening, And then with my soft heart for children, whom I believe they are the future audience, so there's always this gap. Once in a while, there's this competitive spirit to be part of the Makufe poetry. And then the young children, as well as the future audiences, they're also not represented. Then I decided, we need to find a balance to say, let's slowly find this plant, this garden, because when I see children in schools, I see future poets, I see future audiences, I see our buyers, and I see professional poets. So in the meantime, as they grow up, it is up to us to, to plant in, to be in touch, and to introduce them to the things that we do. And then I started to hosting poetry shows monthly so that, poets can come, we can know each other, we can collaborate, and we can actually have a movement so that it doesn't get so isolated. Because most of the time, when you come in a small town, you feel like maybe I need to move to a city so that I can actually start, being a poet. So I thought, you know what, let's start where we are. And 15 years later, we have smaller movements, we have bigger movements, we have platforms. We've have a movement, and we are now working with scholars. We're also publishing their own smaller Nyana poems.
Thank you, Charmaine. So it takes a village to raise a child. So I feel like you're the Rahadi of poetry, right? And the thing about Rahadi means aunt. And I think in our cultures, in our African cultures, there's that aunt who moves. And when she moves, right? So what I hear you describe is you are a movement, and you'll get things done. And you will not wait for the big Makufe Jazz Festival to happen in your town, in your small, supposedly small town. right? Siyabonga Rakgadi. And it's interesting also that you all identify gaps, which in poetry, right? And in your audience creation and what is missing because you are experiencing. And usually with academia, and I'm going to go to Nick right now, there's always this thing of trying to find the research gaps. What are the gaps? And so I'm feeling like you are practicing artists and researchers of your community and academics of your community, you and Hector, in what you've explained. Nick, we're going to now flow into the academic doctor. And we're very happy about you being an academic doctor.
Okay, well, a few things. Well, one is, yeah, I'm recently an academic doctor, but what I realized in being a poet, many of the things that I do were kind of academic already. I just didn't assume them as such. I didn't realize how much I researched. I didn't realize how much I read, how much I traveled. Uh, and because you're an artist and you're doing it almost freelance or for yourself, and oftentimes you're not getting paid for it. I didn't reward it with the right kind of grace and praise that I was doing. It was only when I started to do a master's and then a PhD that I was like, oh wow, things I do anyway, people are calling research. And then and I don't say that glibly. I just didn't realize how passionate I was about poetry and learning. And I think, and this is just a lesson to not just to anyone who is an artist, but take the learning seriously. The learning isn't just the. I'm privileged to be a doctor, but really, it's the learning that it afforded me that is the privilege, not the title. But with that being said, I think there's spaces that we both need to be in as Black bodies. We need to be in artistic spaces, in academic spaces, and in social spaces. Oftentimes, we are forced to the background in all of those spaces, or even when we're in those spaces, we have to navigate very tentatively. But I'm very privileged in the sense that I had probably the best supervisor you could ever ask for with Dr. Sarah Howe, a very intelligent poet and woman and academic, so who kind of had me under her wing. I also had Dr. Anthony Joseph, another great poet. And also I come from, which I think are necessary for Black bodies, but particularly maybe people of color, but definitely for Black bodies. I come from collectives, art collectives. So I came from Malika's Poetry Kitchen. I'm a member of Cave Carnum, and as a direct function of that, I also come from the Complete Works program, which was a development program for people of color. And because of all the tenderness and safety that was afforded me, I wanted to afford that to the next generation. Otherwise, they would have nothing to step forward because people aren't actively trying to help Black poets. When they say they do, it's usually for a period of time and then they go back to what they were originally doing. So what I set up was the Obsidian Foundation, which is really a carbon copy of as much as possible of Cave Econom, which is probably one of the top three safest spaces, of which I've named three: Malika's Kitchen, the Complete Works, and Cave Econom. So we're an online digital poetry retreat, and for anyone who is, hopefully this will air before then, but we're having our third online digital retreat, and we're offering you have to contact through an organization, but we're offering 10 free bursaries, only 10, but we have to select them for African poets on the continent to attend that retreat in December. It's from December the 14th for a week. We hope we can help. And what we're trying to build is poets with craft, and then poets with confidence, and then poets who enter into the literary establishment. Because the thing that kills us is longevity. Often we don't have the staying power or the communities or the finance in some kind of way. We can't offer the finance, but we can definitely offer you the craft. And we have a good track record so far. Many of our first years and second year alumni have gone on to do great things in the space called poetry and the space called literature. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nick, for that. So I'm gonna quickly, before going to Ntokozo's, because I mustn't forget, when is the application deadline and when is the call, and where can poets find this call? I mean, we're gonna share later on our social media handle, and
so we're asking Poetry Africa to nominate 2 people. We're kind of going through institutions, 2 poets to put them forward, and then whoever gets put forward. But I'm just letting people know. But also they can apply directly, but there are only 10 bursaries, of which 2 will be assigned, say, to Poetry Africa, for example, and they nominate the poets. But otherwise, there are 60 places altogether. We offer those 10 free bursaries, but then there are 50 paid places, which are about £350. The application, go check it out on the Obsidian site, obsidianfoundation.co.uk. It's live. I think it ends in end of October, and we're accepting applications as we speak. So, that's pretty much it. So, we're trying to kind of cut the barrier that Africa has specifically in being part of this conversation, because my belief, I'm yet to be proven wrong, is that a lot of the best writing or thinking about writing is actually happening on the continent, but they don't always have the tools or the networks to help them develop, because you can have talent, but you also need development. So, Michael Jordan was talented, but it was his development that allowed him to get into the NBA. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And thank you for that. And so the audience did hear, and your fellow colleagues here did hear that, and we're going to repeat it. And I think the Poetry Africa would also just advertise the opportunity that you spoke about, and what you said so beautifully for me, which when you spoke about the collective, and what comes out for all of you is a sense of community, that we work in community, and I'm going to bridge into Ntokozo, because what you introduced so beautifully in terms of collective, there's a greeting in isiZulu which means sawubona, literally means I see you, I acknowledge you, right? And so this notion of being seen and seeing each other collectively through poetry comes through a lot in most of your work that you guys have spoken about, Charmaine and Hector and Nick, and the responsibility then that comes with being seen, right? So it's not like this, what's the word? The English word. It's not just a performance of it. It's ingrained work that is embodied, and that's what I hear. Ntokozo, to you, my brother. Ngiyakubona, sawubona.
Yeah, thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to share the work that I do. I think my first encounter and realization in terms of poetry was when I came to university. I registered my undergrad at DUT in 2008. Upon my arrival, I knew that I could write and I knew that I loved poetry, but I was not exposed to anything like a poetry session whatsoever. I just had my own book that I kept there, and no one knew anything about that book, and I even write for that matter. So upon arriving at university, I discovered there's something called a poetry session, and I was introduced to such thing by the lady named Busiswa Gulu. I'm sure some of you will know her. She's a famous musician from the Eastern Cape. She was at DUT at that time, and we met at a computer lab. There was a central space where we used to go and print our stuff. So I was printing some of the poems I'd written. So she saw when the paper came out of the machine, and she tapped my back and asked, "Are you a writer?" And I said, "Yes." "What do you write?" "I write poetry." "Do you know that there's a poetry session?" And I asked, "What the hell is that?" She said, "No, this is a place where poets come together. They meet on these days every Friday on this specific vein." I think it was a Tuesday. I couldn't wait for Friday. Friday, 12:30, I was there waiting. And the venue, this is one of the biggest venues in DUT. It was packed to capacity. It's a 200-seater venue, but it was packed to capacity. I was so shocked to discover there are people writing, people are able to stand in front of people and recite their poems without even reading. However, what I discovered was within this population, there were people who were not even university registered students who came from all the locations or the townships around Durban. Some were even in high school, some were in primary, but they all met there. And the challenge was the university did not officially recognize them because they did not follow the proper university structures to book venue. They were not recognized. So I took it upon myself and inquired, how do I make sure that this thing is recognized? I was told how to follow the rules, and then it was officially recognized. We were not chased away from the venue. And in so doing, I started inviting people from the outside, which is what landed me to Ukhozi FM. When I think I had a 5-year stint, Ukhozi FM is the biggest station in South Africa with over 7 million listeners. I think it's number 2 in Africa. It was also a difficulty having to gain access because some people still had that beliefs about poetry, which once I give these people a platform, possibly there are some things that you're going to say which is against the rules of broadcasting. I had to convince these people that no, poetry is no longer like that. This is something different. Please come to the session and listen to what we do, which is how we also got to get the slot on Ukhozi FM for 5 years. And I'm grateful to Mr. Mavondla and Mr. Mtonu, who's late, by affording the opportunity that they sacrificed their own time for us to have that slot. And in that slot again, I discovered that there were a lot of young aspiring poets who were like myself in 2009, who had nowhere else to go to. They were just writing. And that also birthed an idea to say, because I have this medium, which is a radio station, let me assist by formulating different poetry sessions in different locations where they are there. So I would encourage them to group or formalize themselves. We would go there, train them. This is how you run a session. Go to the nearest school or hall, seek for space. You should meet frequently. And we'll try and assist and run workshops based on the information that we have gained, and also call out on all people. And also discovering that people who attended our session in DUT had their own sessions, and they're still available till today in different locations. But we knew that on a Friday, you should go and meet there. To a point that that session was so busy, to a point it was not even a session anymore. It was taken as a show, because some people would frown upon a person who stand up and read. They just want you to perform, which required of one to practice, prepare themselves before going to a poetry session as if you're going to a venue. And of late, one of the things I've done is through my current employer, which is Mangosuthu University of Technology, I've established a program called Funda Nathi Literacy Campaign, which stemmed from a study that was done by the Basic Education, which discovered that our pupils from grade 4, 5, they cannot read for understanding or read for meaning, which then gave to birth to that program called Funda Nathi, where I'm partnering with the municipality libraries in eThekwini, as well as the Department of Education, where we have selected about 6 schools closer to the university, where we assist them with reading and writing. And currently, I'm trying to formalize it. I like what Nick said, and in terms of publications, assist these young ones still in primary and high school to formalize their writing so that we take it there. And on top, when the radio slot ended after 5 years, I discovered that we have no medium, I have no space where I can accommodate these people, which is how I then started the movement of the podcast Izinkondlo Ziyaphilisa, which is still continuing the work I was doing on radio, but now it is in a podcast. Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm so like, I want to just take a breath, because you've moved from being in a university space that doesn't recognize you and making them. And we know what protocols universities and institutions are in one of them, right? And what they require of you, and how you have to, and it's the coloniality of it. So I'm going to get into it because Nick touches on it. And it's the coloniality and this exclusiveness that universities have, right? And you would think that in a space like KwaZulu-Natal, we wouldn't have that, like, because it is, I find the communities are really quite centered. So I like the fact that you went and had a dialogue with the university structures. And I want to go in fast because I'm so excited about each program that you presented. And then you moved all the way to the digital space, right? When it is required. And so it's asking you, what you speak about, you asking the times, right? What does the times require me to do in this moment, right? The literacy program, and I'm going to go to Charmaine after, because you see how this conversation flows. I'm going to go into Charmaine and have questions for Charmaine about literacy. You're touching on a very unjust thing about South African transformation, so to give people a context. So what the South African transformation has lacked in its educational moments, and it's got the CAPS curriculum. It's a beautiful document that doesn't, to a certain extent, and this is the critique of the CAPS curriculum, that it doesn't meet the learners where they're at, right? I read it, and for me, I'm like, wow. But it doesn't, the research that is coming up, and also there's challenges of training with this new curriculum, and it has been shifting. It's not like it hasn't had attempts. But what you're getting into beautifully is the fact that South Africa, after 30 years of democracy, realizes that they should have focused on early childhood development. So you have a South African president, you see, I'm getting like emotional, apologizing. And he's an apologist, actually, apologizing to the nation that we should have actually focused on this stage of education. So that's the conundrum South Africa has found itself in. And thank you, Dogozo, for the work that you're doing. And Charmaine. And you know what, can I just say, because I've got a late friend whose surname is Mkhwebi, Primrose was a poet. So when I started following you on, and I just want to name, and because it was her birthday this month, I want to just, because she's a beautiful ancestor who loved poetry and was a poet. And you share the same clan names or surnames. And I just want to mention her name. But the question then is, I digress, is tell us about the journey of engaging children in poetry and reading. How has that been for you in your community? And if you can tie in with the conversation or the points that Ntokozo mentioned.
Yeah, once you start publishing your poetry book, and books are not selling, I think that's what led me, because there are misconceptions that once you get published, you start making money. So I've published my book in 2008. My book is not selling, no one is calling me. And then I decided that, schools are there, communities are there. Why don't I partner with local schools in South Africa, call teachers, call principals, because even sometimes when we even write our poetry, our books, we sometimes write in isolation. We don't even engage our target audience. So going to schools has been a beautiful platform for me that has affirmed the writing that I'm writing. Some of the poems, when I give to the learners, to read out loud, to discuss, to review, it gives me confidence, and it's a nice feedback, So in the meantime, now I'm a full-time worker who weekly goes to school, in a way that I don't fold my arms to say, people call me, let my books be sold. So going to schools, and as you go into schools, you see this beautiful platform of children, whom teachers had labeled as slow learners or children who are naughty in the classroom. But as we give them these poems, they dramatize, some do read out loud, These children who have been problematic in the classroom, they're the ones who comes to the show. This has been very beautiful. And now, to a sense, now that there's even a monetary return, because when we go to schools weekly with the poetry sessions, schools also need fundraising. And then we are able to say, let's do a poetry session, let's dramatize these books, let's do a theater piece where, you know, the children are the center. You know, as a poet, I don't always stand in front of the kids. I say, this is my poetry collection with 20 poems. Can I have auditions? Can I have young grade 7, you know, memorizing? And these intelligent, exciting, beautiful people, they'll memorize. Teachers will charge children 2 rand, we get 1 rand, the school gets 1 rand. The kids are even excited. They're even inviting their parents to come on board. So it's been a beautiful, beautiful marvel. And some of the kids that I met 10 years ago, now older in matric, you know, now creatives, even if they're not poets, but as visual artists, you know, as these beautiful individuals that I'm amazed when I look at them and their focus in life. So it has been very beautiful. And I'm excited that I live in a country where you can just have nice conversation and partnerships with SGBs and principals and HODs. And most of the time, they get so excited to say, we don't do things like you guys do. This is so exciting. Come, let us concentrate on the teaching, and you guys come with a different medium to teach children.
Charmaine, so you speak about really, and so the fact that you bring parents into the conversation, where I think one of the challenges in South African education, that there's this gap, that the systems don't speak to each other, that you've got the home and parents are going to work, trying to get the children to school with their financial, and so just seeing and making sure you're mediating those different systems of how to raise a child and how that you use creativity, because the one thing about creativity is it can explore the various ways of learning for an individual, that it's not linear, and it's quite embodied. And you speak to that very well, Rahadi, Charmaine. So now
I
I'm
received
calling
the
you,
label, I
because you
received.
definitely mine, right? I'm obsessed with these
Yeah.
characters, these aunts, these African aunts that
Yeah.
just move. And what you do so well, and I spoke to the partnership of the CAPS curriculum. What you do so well, you talk about really assisting the CAPS curriculum. The teachers have to follow policy and do A, B, and C and go training. So they inundated also with just trying to teach what is on the CAPS. So what you've put in is a buffer zone, or not even a buffer zone, and a tool to assist the teachers to really see the capacity and the capabilities of their learners. And thank you for the work that you do. What everyone has spoken about is about audience, and I'm not going to call it audience development. For the sake of the word development, I get triggered by the word development because of how, when it goes to the global north, how it's interpreted. Opening up spaces and engaging audiences. So Hector, so you said slam was very competitive. I agree.
Yes.
It's intimidating. And so and it's okay, right? So we're not saying there's something wrong with it. How for you has it been to really engage audiences and invite audiences to this form of work and
Yeah.
discipline, I would say?
Yeah. Yeah, no. We definitely love slams. By me saying it's competitive, there's definitely nothing wrong. I love how people get developed in their writing. It sharpens their pen. It's a beautiful medium or form of platform as well. In our approach as World of Words, we just wanted to create something relaxing, where people engage. Funny enough, with growing the audience, we started with literally 3 people at our show. Our first show ever, there was only 3 people. I'm gonna shout them out because I still remember them. It's Lisha Magete, it was Belita and Dre, and a friend of mine, Ukugule too. So from there, we're like, yo, man, was it the day? Which one? No, so we kind of switched days and we landed on a Sunday because all the other days, there's too many things happening in Joburg. So we're hosting on the Sundays twice a month, and it was just a robust, guerrilla marketing. Like we're really just trying to go all the way with marketing. And at the time, it's low cost budget, zero budget in terms of marketing. So we are upcycling different things. We are going to different events, and literally just inviting people. Yo, man, we're doing this thing on Sunday. And then I think one thing we noticed in our early days is like when you say poetry, a lot of people don't have a good experience, like especially from high school because they were reading, let me not mention those authors, but those European authors, the type of English they were using was not relatable. They didn't see themselves in that type of writing. So I kind of got to a point where like now, okay, let's not tell people it's a poetry thing. Let's just say, yo man, we're doing this thing, come and experience it. And then when they get there, they're just thrown in a deep end and you find that they really love it. And they're like, yo, I didn't know I love poetry. I'm like, oh yeah, so we're just trying to go into all avenues. I think one fortunate thing about where we were hosting it was like central to everything. So the likes of your Maboneng, who a lot of people know, a lot of creatives go there, would walk to Maboneng because it's walking distance. We can walk to Bram. It's like a 45-minute walk to Bramfontein. We'd walk to Bramfontein and then just invite the students. We just ask around who's studying at a university, who's into English, who's into writing, and then we just invite people. It just became a word of mouth thing where we made sure that we talk to the right people and we make this thing as exciting as we can. But we did have an element of music. And the reason why we started incorporating music in our sessions was because, yes, it's words, it's writing, and some writers draw from poetry, but it was also because in our reach, we also struggled with like our show would start maybe at 1, uh, till like 5, but then we didn't know that many poets kind of cover that time. So we started now also including musicians because I also had a lot of friends who are musicians. So to be more inclusive in our approach, but still having poetry at the core, we try to diversify as much as possible. And then at some point, because this is a free event, we're not charging anything in our early days. We now started incorporating entrepreneurship. So spotlighting entrepreneurs or young people who had businesses. So would maybe charge them 100 Rand to come have a stall. And then we know that with that 100 Rand, we can print how many posters to go give around to people. But we don't just give people, we go there and talk to them like, yo man, we're doing this thing. I can only give you the poster if you guarantee that you'd come to the event. Because it also hurt when you give people your poster and then down the block they throw away your piece of paper that you worked very hard to design and your energy into sending it out. So yeah, the development of the audience was quite a journey. I remember one of my highlights was this guy was like, okay, he's interested, he's excited, and I was like, okay, so what's gonna be happening there? And then I ended up telling, okay, cool, now it's gonna be a poetry show. And he's like, what is poetry? This guy didn't know what poetry is, and then we had to explain what poetry is. But it was also like, man, it's better experienced. It's writing, no music. There are some performers that use instrumentals, but please come experience it. So there was also an educational element to it, whereby a lot of people or some people didn't know what poetry was, and we're really just trying to find people that can relate and connect with our people. Um, some were reading, some were strictly performing, some had a background in theater. So we'd also go to theater places where there's theater shows and invite people there. So, for lack of a better word, I'd say poaching. Would go to other events and poach people to say, come here, because it's something cooler, and you know, it's free entry, and really young people need a space to express themselves. I think in that very same breath, there was, I think, a pandemic of mental health, right? So we started now spotlighting writing as a form of expression. Not that we guarantee anybody that they'll get any assistance or any type of therapy, but we just highlight that actually art as a form of expression is to a certain extent healing. I wholeheartedly believe art is a form of healing and doing what you love is a form of prayer. So I started now advocating for art and for people to come through. And it did manifest the way I believed it is, where even the people who'd never attended poetry shows before would come and like, yo, man, I don't love poetry. I didn't know I love poetry. I didn't know about poetry, but I love being here. And thank you for inviting me. I feel like I can face my reality, you know, my mental health, you know, like them being in that space where there's a lot of young people who are expressing the stuff they go through. A lot of people could relate. It was somewhat enlightening and helping people face what they are dealing with on a day to day. And yeah, that's been our journey with audience development. But also, I think most importantly, I became friends with people who are graphic designers. So we wanted to have some of the dopest posters the poetry industry have ever seen. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Poetry Africa. Like in the past 3 or 4 years, you guys, your visual communication has been a 10 out of 10. And I think that's what the poetry community needed, like vibrant posters that are like, oh, damn, this looks exciting. I might not know all the poets on the poster, but yo, these visuals are really inviting. So yeah, big ups. We also did put more intention in having captivating posters, diversifying it across video mediums and printed posters, engaging posters and campaigns that actually created an interactive type of network with our people. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hector. What you highlight so well is and I think with Charmaine also, what comes up is really moving away from the discipline decadence. And what I mean by that you need to draw upon, if it's theater that speaks to poetry, it needs to speak to the poetry. So you expand the form, but also at the core, stick to poetry. Like when you said you invited musicians, it makes sense. Music is poetry. You know, if they're writing or even they're performing, right? So I really just was intrigued by that, and the way that that was highlighted, this notion also of finding the space, which speaks to Ntokozo. So it's like Mabone, that's where they're at, right? And how you move in the space, right? If it means we must walk, and the strategizing through that with zero budget. Yeah, what this industry of no zero budget is also such an injustice to the work that you do, because it is cultural value. It does matter if it is gonna actually speak to mental health, right? And I wonder what possibility this could be if we engage beyond just the discipline of poetry and go into the health sectors. But I also want to recommend you, in a culture, South African culture, we know we've got toxic masculinity issues. I'm Rahat, I'm not gonna back down. Right? We know where we're at, right, in this country. And I'm gonna speak about this country. It's a global problem, right? I feel like I say we're in crisis mode. And I wanna say the justice work that you're making men feel is compelling. And I want to just highlight that. And
We lost you there
Nikube,
for a bit.
oh, you lost me.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying the fact that you're making space for men to express their feelings is important work. And Nikube, I can only say it in my Xhosa, nes Nikube kwande kukhanye. Nick, drawing on what Hector said about, you highlighted safe space, like in your first introduction of what does it mean for you to create safe space as a Black person in London with the global North politics that are currently going on, and that they do affect the global South, obviously, because we are all intertwined. Yeah, what does that mean for you in poetry? Because you highlighted it so well, and I just want to flesh it out for us a bit.
Okay, I'll try my best. So, the thing about being an artist is it's actually an important part of social existence. But there's several layers of safety. So we as African people, oftentimes we diminish the arts when we're in the global north because we're trying to survive. So we want to be, you've heard this, the saying, you've got to be a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever. Those are good jobs in a society where you're just trying to survive. You need the best job. It's going to pay you the most money. It's going to give you the least grief, relatively, right? So a lot of times in that conversations, the arts are diminished, or even sport or whatever like that. They're not seen as important, even though those very arts are part of our African heritage and culture as far as you can go back. So there is a safe space. The first layer of safe space is acknowledging that the arts are an integral part of Black existence, right? And that that we need to engage with them from an early age. In other words, me going to the theater, or me going to see a play or a film is actually part of my artistic, mental, and spiritual development. When your parents are just like, just get on your books, they're actually disadvantaging you because they're not allowing your full development, right? So that's layer one. Layer two is if you then choose to be in the arts. One of the things that I found, for myself and for anyone else, they're probably artists who are better than me, but I've just been afforded the luxury of being able to stick at it, even in the good times and the bad. And the sticking at it means, is there a space where I can develop my craft? Is there a space where I can read? Is there a space where I can engage with other artists and get feedback? Yeah. Is there a space I can be listened to without ridicule, or, just as we've seen in the societies that we're living in now, where everything about me is under threat? If I display my body, I could be deported. If I say something, I'm seen as an aggressor. If I don't say something, I could be attacked. Yeah. So when you're living inside of that, how does one then say, oh, you know what I'm going to do today? Today I'm going to create art. Yeah. And then if you have the economic situation, and the economic parallel of that is that oftentimes, we live in societies where the Black body, or the Black earning power, even though we have a lot of money, relatively the average money inside of a household is quite low. So if you were to say to me, my counterpart, my white counterpart, and say to them, hey, why do you take 2 years to write a book? How do I do that when I have to pay rent, this, that, and all these costs are just spiraling up? Whereas they might be living in a situation where my dad's got a house that he's bought for me, and I can live there for 2 years. In fact, I might even go traveling, right? So, and that's not that they shouldn't do that, but you just
Yeah.
that a lot of times people aren't aware what the dynamics are for that Black artist, right? So then a safe space, what does a safe space then look like? You know, Oftentimes it's just a put space where you can have time just to even just think about what I've just said. Wait a minute. I'm at a disadvantage. Wait a minute. I'm not even working on my craft. Wait a minute. I have a very bad relationship with art. Every time I try to do my art, I feel guilty. So until you even had a time to think about that, that's a problem. Then if you didn't decide whatever art that is, music, whatever film, whatever, how do you then take it seriously? Can you be put in a space where there are other critical minds looking at you and saying, hey, show me what you got. Let's get to work. Yeah, but no, I'm not interested in your complaints, your arguments, your issues. Let's get to work. I'm going to give you a week or a month or whatever it is. Let's get to work. And then now that we've got to work, we're going to critique it. It's not about how we feel about the work. It's about whether it's doing what it said it will do, is it not doing what it said it will do, and are you willing to take the feedback to develop that? Because oftentimes, because of all that environment, we're actually quite fragile. We're actually bad at taking criticism because we're always in defense mode. So a safe space means you can take down your defensive mode that's often attacking A, yourself, B, your people trying to help you, and then C, this world that you think is out there that you're trying to protect. So a safe space is trying to get through all those unnecessary defense modes to a place of rest, and then to a place of discipline, and then to a place of craft. Yeah. And then from there, you can then make a choice. Do I want to take this on? If you don't, fair enough. You don't want to take it on, it's fine. You have a choice. But if you do want to take it on, now you have to equip yourself with discipline and longevity. Yeah. I don't know if I've answered it well, but I tried my best. Hello? Should I say
Uh,
more?
yeah, it's fine. The system has cut us off, but it's okay. And Nhlanhla is gonna edit. And what I'll do then now is I will close because Nick, you said something so important, and thank you for that. And we captured it. I'm gonna. My backpack is there. I didn't connect it to the what? To the.
Power.
I didn't connect. Yeah, my charger. Hlakanipho is doing it. What? Just let me know when you're recording. Oh, so you edit me.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. So Nick, I will end, guys. Let's give us time. So, because this is so rich, right? And so what I'll do is I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna facilitate so we can all prepare and be fast, right? So Nick spoke about sticking it out. And so I'll ask you briefly, what does sticking it out? Because we must not romanticize being an artist who's Black, who's a woman, um, and who's a man in this marginalized form of art, right? So I'm gonna show it, and that will be our closing for each person. And then if you can say your social media handle, I'm not gonna even cue you into them because then it will take time. So you go, this is what sticking out is for me, and social media handle. Nick, I'll give you time just to wrap up a bit. If you give me like, what does it mean for safe space? And thank you for that input. Thank you, guys. Thank you. If my emotions are, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Nick, take it.
Yeah, safe space is important, and you have to actually train yourself to identify them, and sometimes to join them, because sometimes you are the resistant element in that safe space. You're struggling or you've given up on yourself, which I have done several times. People assume I'm successful, but no, I've been lifted up by community. So Carvey Conham lifted me up, Complete Works lifted me up. Dr. Sarah Howe, when I was doing my PhD, was a person who lifted me up. I was not always this person that who seems so articulate. I was vulnerable, I was weak. And so what it requires, to take it seriously is a stickability. It's a moving on. It's a keep going, but not in the like just crazy keep going. You need the environments, and you need to search them and take them seriously, and you need to be very strict on yourself about what am I actually doing. Like, have a look when you look in the mirror and you see mud on your face and you go, oh, I need to clean that. Like, you clean it off. In the same way, when you look in the mirror and you realize, oh, I'm not reading enough. Oh, I'm taking the easy, clean your face. Because the more that you get to know yourself inside of your art, like, am I doing my art properly? Am I reading everything I could? Am I learning everything I can? As you look into the mirror of your art, does it really reflect the best of you? Because the curse of the Black person is that we're very talented, and sometimes our talent masks our lack of discipline. So we can do things on the cuff because of our talent, but it's discipline that will have you do things when you don't want to do them. When it's a year, it's 2 years, it's as one of our colleagues was saying, Charmaine was saying, when the books aren't selling, you know, are you still going to turn up, or were you just waiting for, was it only when the books were selling that you'd be disciplined? Right? So that discipline, that turning up, that looking in the mirror, that taking yourself seriously, that holding yourself to account inside of a community, and that cleansing spirit. Like, you have to cleanse your spirit. So when you're in a toxic environment, a lot of times you can start mimicking the toxic environment, right? You actually have to like forgive yourself for that, and even the people around you for that, and start saying, no, 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 I choose to be a cleansing spirit. I choose from the creator to have his spirit, which is a cleansing spirit, and so that I can do my art, because it's a gift. And sometimes when you forget that it's a gift, and the biggest epiphany for me is that when it was taken, there was a time when it could have been taken away, and when it, and that's what made me take it seriously. My handle is at nickmakoha.com. Makoha is spelled Makoha, and you can also find me on my website. Thank you.
And thank you, Nick, for just those gentle reminders about sticking it out. And also, we don't want to romanticize sticking it out, right? Because it gets hard. And we've come to our close, and there's no time. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'll just call you out to tell us, what does sticking it out mean for you in 1 sentence, 2 sentences, and please give us your social media handle. And I hope there's going to be more opportunities to exchange and engage and collaborate just between the two of you. Not between the two of you, but amongst all of you. Okay, Dogozo, take us.
Oh, thank you very much. What an insightful and a motivational engagement you've just said with the colleagues. I would say for me, blessed is the one who has identified their calling, and they are persevering in ensuring that they preserve it and they take it to the next level. And in doing so, they hold someone's hands with them, whom they have identified possibly they suffer from the same disease, which is writing. So persevere. Once you have identified that you are good in this, move on, break boundaries. I loved Charmaine's analogy about her having to write books, sell them, and when they are not selling, they are not going to come to you. Just go out, spread your wings. And we are not here forever. Tomorrow is not promised, but it is a promise. My name is Ntokozo Zulu on social media. The handle is Izinkondlo Ziyaphilisa. That Izinkondlo Ziyaphilisa Poetry Hills. I thank you.
Thank you, Hector.
Sticking it out for me means building a community or identifying one and being a part of it. You can't do anything by yourself. Be in community. You can't carry the load by yourself. Be in community and have people to help you carry the load in whatever context that might be. On social medias, I am Exquisified, as it is on my name, Exquisified. And the poetry house that I represent is World of Words, and it's Wow Poetry 24/7 across all social media platforms. And I thank you guys.
Hey, Rachadi Charmaine. I'm Rachadi myself.
Sticking it out for me just means, putting on the shoes of those who came before me, who started this literature industry, with their little challenges and, opportunities. But they started this, and now it's up to me to continue, even if it's uncomfortable. I need to stick it out. My social media handle is Charmza Kulwane Mukhwebi, and my company is Charmza Literary Club.
And thank you, everyone. Put in your questions, your comments on this video, and it's a wrap.